Aston Martin has reported that its losses more than quadrupled in 2022 as the sports car manufacturer invested extensively on new models while dealing with supply chain issues plaguing the global car sector. That's bad news for the company. What has caused such calamity and what will Aston Martin do about it? All will be answered in this video. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this. The UK listed company recorded a loss before tax of £495 million in 2022, up from £214 million the previous year, despite sales increasing 26% to £1.4 billion. After correcting for one-time charges, it had an operating loss of £118 million, which was less than the £135 million predicted by analysts. After an overly ambitious offering on the London Stock Exchange in late 2018, the firm has fought for years to recover. Lawrence Stroll, the fashion mogul, took over in early 2020, just as the coronavirus epidemic started. Since then, Stroll has worked to take Aston Martin's brand upmarket with higher costs and reduce the company's debilitating debt burden, including a £650 million financing in July that included money from Saudi Arabia's state investment fund. Aston Martin sold 6,400 vehicles in 2022, but it needed to be improved by greater spending, notably reinvestments in marketing and costly new model releases and the impact of rising inflation throughout its operations. At the same time, it invested £287 million in new model development. It also intends to make 2023 its peak year for investment under Stroll's leadership, including the last year of major expenditure linked with our internal combustion engine portfolio. Aston Martin plans to release a number of new vehicles this year, including the £314,000 DBS 770 Ultimate and super expensive special vehicles such as the Valkyrie Spider hypercar and the £1.5 million DBR22. For some years, industry observers have wondered how smaller car makers like Aston Martin could manage with the costly transition to electric vehicles and increased demands for digital technology without being controlled by a larger automobile company, as is the situation with VW-owned Bentley or BMW-owned Rolls-Royce. Aston Martin does, however, have an agreement with Mercedes-Benz, which is also a stakeholder, to share some technologies. Stroll stated that the firm has continued to build on the excellent foundations that have been formed over my 3 years as executive chairman, despite industry-wide headwinds in 2022. As I've already stated, I understood it would take many years to turn Aston Martin into the world's most desired ultra-luxury British performance brand, he added. With the hard lifting completed, we are now ready to enjoy the fruits of this change beginning in 2023. Stroll stated that the firm was on target to make over $2 billion in revenue and $500 million in gross operating profit by 2024 to 25, and that it will reach 10,000 dealer sales in the near years. It had hoped to reach 10,000 sales by 2020 when it went public. Aston Martin CEO Amedeo Felisa stated that the company faced a difficult operational environment in 2022. After spending 16 years as one of Adrian Newey's main lieutenants at Red Bull, Fallows joined Aston Martin in April as part of owner Lawrence Stroll's recruitment push. The updated design team, including former Mercedes Aero head Eric Blandin, built a vehicle with 95% new parts, a statistic that rivals have recognized is excessive considering that a lack of regulation revisions and a cost restriction would normally promote a significant degree of carryover. Fernando Alonso dominated Friday's FP2 and Saturday's FP3 sessions in Bahrain, proving that the green car can compete with the established major players. First and foremost, we are satisfied with the automobile, Fallows remarked. We wanted to make a significant improvement over last year's automobile, so in terms of performance compared to it, we're pleased that we've made progress. We also set some rather aggressive goals for ourselves, and we did, for the most part, meet them. And we came out of testing feeling that we did have a car that we could work with, but where we sat relative to other people, I know you'd love me to make a forecast, but we just don't know. Fallows emphasized that when the automobile was initially tested, it demonstrated an excellent connection with what the wind tunnel anticipated. The essential thing for us coming into testing was to make sure that the vehicle on track was doing what we expected based on the wind tunnel statistics and our models, he explained. As a technical staff, I believe it's always satisfying to see a car on the track that matches your expectations, and that's exactly what our testing revealed, which is good. The automobile is quite predictable. It's starting to do what we want it to, which is a big plus for us. In terms of relative performance, I believe it is really difficult to say. I'm glad there's a lot of excitement around the squad, but different teams do things so differently in testing that we won't know how fantastic the vehicle is until this weekend. I don't believe we're all astonished that we struck the mark. It's simply that you have this nagging feeling that something won't quite work, or that your correlation will fail you and the vehicle you generate on track won't behave as you'd anticipate. After being so psyched up for pre-season testing at the Bahrain International Circuit, Aston Martin's season began in the worst conceivable way, with the first red flag of the season. Many have picked Aston Martin as a team to watch ahead of the next season. However, everyone was looking at the Silverstone-based team for the wrong reasons during the first minutes of pre-season testing when the team's car was lifted onto a recovery van. Felipe Drugovich, the reigning Formula 2 world champion, stopped in the opening minutes of testing, with Aston Martin's backup driver having halted the vehicle at turn 4. Drugovich is standing in for Lance Stroll during pre-season testing since the Canadian has been ruled out due to a minor cycling mishap in Spain. That was a disastrous start for Drugovich, who had hoped for a clean start to the pre-season. In traditional pre-season form, a vehicle cover was quickly put over the AMR23 to prevent competitors from learning any specifics about the car while it was stationary. Luckily, Drugovich was back on track shortly after the car was returned to the workshop, indicating that the problem was minor. Nonetheless, as the vehicle was motionless on the track, images of Fernando Alonso looking less than thrilled rapidly spread on social media, with some suggesting that the Spaniard's unreliability follows him everywhere he goes. Alonso's 2022 season at the Alpine was derided due to reliability troubles, and the 41-year-old will be looking for a better outcome this season at Aston Martin. The twice world champion will take the wheel of the AMR23 on Thursday afternoon, with the team still to reveal who will drive on Friday and Saturday. As the morning session concluded, Drugovich was the slowest of the 10 drivers on the track with a 1:36.907, 4 seconds slower than Max Verstappen. The timings could be more useful during pre-season testing, given it is unclear what the teams are running in terms of fuel and setup. Right now is a difficult period for the British sports car business, with sports car sales plummeting during the epidemic. McLaren was recently forced to lay off 1,200 employees, accounting for almost a quarter of the company's staff. Aston Martin is presently in a similar scenario. Appetite for the company's sports cars has decreased, reducing the manufacturing of vehicles like the Vantage and DBS Superleggera. As a result, Aston Martin has announced eliminating 500 positions as part of a £10 million, $12 million cost-cutting strategy to aid the company's recovery from the coronavirus problem. This is around 1/5 of the company's workforce of approximately 2,600 people. These layoffs occurred barely 1 week after Mercedes-AMG CEO Tobias Moores replaced the previous CEO Andy Palmer. According to Aston Martin, the strategy necessitates a fundamental reset, which includes a planned decrease in front-engine sports vehicle production to rebalance supply and demand. Notwithstanding these hiccups, the Aston Martin DBX is scheduled for summer delivery and has a strong order book. The actions announced today will right-size the organizational structure and align the cost base with lower levels of sports vehicle production, compatible with regaining profitability, Aston Martin concluded. Aston Martin plans to decrease production costs by £8 million, $10 million, and capital spending by £10 million, in addition to the £10 million cost-cutting strategy revealed in January. This year's cash restructuring expenses are projected to be £12 million, $50 million. Early this year, Canadian billionaire and Formula 1 team owner Lawrence Stroll joined a syndicate of investors to acquire a 25% share in Aston Martin for roughly $657 million, but the firm is clearly still struggling financially. Aston Martin had a pre-tax loss of £118.9 million, $149 million in the first 3 months of 2020. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you'd like us to make more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel and leave your video suggestions in the comments section.